guys, now when we know that there are two important things in the process criteria and process action. So how shall we go ahead with it? So understand, the very important deliverable or very important input in your due diligence would be the availability of SOPs and the availability of process map. At least you would need L2 level process map, because you just by mere understanding cannot rely on the knowledge of subject matter expert or somebody who is aligned to you to explain the process to you, because the information, if that SME resigned, if he leaves the organization, what then? Then there has to be a documentation sign off during the due diligence phase. So get the SOP, get the level 1 process map, and understand the process. Now I'll share an example of one process with you, a sample process, and then we'll look at how exactly process criteria and process action fits into the selection criteria. So let's discuss the process. Now this is the process for one of the telecom industry, a fairly simple process which we were talking about. So you also have to decide the complexity of the automation. You have to decide, is it simple to automate, or is it medium complexity level, or is it a very difficult process to automate? So you have to define the complexity of the process for automation. So right now we are looking at the fairly simple process to automate. Now let's understand the process. If you look at the process, start with picking up the order. So agent picks up the order, and with a different color, you see it's a different color process box altogether. So we are talking about the application over here, a simple wall application, or a simple this process. Just have a look, like I told you, when you do a due diligence, look at the surface of water in swimming pool. So just have a look at the process, and looking at the process, we understand that this is a near to L2 level process map. The sky blue color and dark blue color signifies the application over here. Now, by looking at the process, I understand that there are three applications of three different, the one which are marked as three different colors, and so the process looks to be fairly simple. There are only two decision box. Number of decision box in the process would help you to identify how many exceptions, business exceptions could be there in the process. The number of loop or a feedback loop or a control loop would help you assess in terms of where all the exceptions can be there, or where all your bot can halt for some amount of time. So let's start the process. So it's a fairly simple process from one of the telecom industry. The agent picks up the order. So he's picked up on the wall application, and then the dark blue application is a blacksmith. It's your mainframe application. Now once he picks up the order, he checks the order details. Then he searches the order. So what he do? He picks the order number from order application or order wall, and then put it. So look at the action. He is copying it from that application, and then he is doing a field entry in blacksmith application when he is searching the order details. Now again, is that order details correct? Decision box. If it's not correct, then you can define an exception over it. We will talk about business and system exceptions in details in separate video. Yeah. So now again, if the details are not correct, is it not correct order? Again, he would pick up the order. So it could be like that. There are various orders appeared on the screen. So bot would identify which one is the correct order. Now at this place itself, you need to understand, if there are so many order numbers over here, how would bot identify? So at every step, you have to decide, or you have to do a sub-steps, or it could be your L3 process level map, which is very important to have the various case types for your bot. Now let's move ahead. Now search the order detail. If it's correct, let's move again, and it would open the attachments. So your attachments are the document file which were there on the order wall. your agent would open it, would read what all there in the attachment file. Remember, we also talked about standardization in your process criteria. We talked about standardized input. Now, if there are various documents in terms of PDF file, document in terms of image file, your Word file, this would be a very difficult stage. So your bot cannot process further. So you have to do the standardization if you have various other kinds of documents flowing over here. Let's open all the attachments. Now from attachment, again in Blacksmith application, you see it's doing the verification process. So to give you an example, is the name of the customer is correct, is the address of the customer is correct, the plan which customer is looking for is correct. So doing the verification now. Any mismatch could be an exception. Your bot has to be designed in such a way that it can handle an exception. So you have to define all the types of permutation and combinations possible over here. So these would be a different case types or sub scenarios altogether. And please do have the process map for all the scenarios and do have the SOPs or instruction manual for bot to work on different scenarios. It is very important, else it could be a failed automation over here. So verification fails, it's no good. Your agent is sending it to your sales team. So it is through another application, E2 mail. Sales probably would revert back. So sales would check what they missed from the customer side, and probably this is the different entity altogether. It's a different process altogether, which is out of scope for this automation-led process. Now we move ahead. Now verification done. There are certain codes which would need to be put in the Blacksmith. So guys, we are talking about a process wherein a certain kind of a line or a broadband line which has to be laid down at the customer premise. Now to activate those lines, certain codes would be required to punch in the applications. So agent basically are punching codes over here in Blacksmith at this step. Now he would punch in the code, he would move further. Now once the code has been put, he would close the order and your process stop. So what we are trying to look at with this process is that we are trying to identify the process actions. When we punch in the code, a lot of field entry is happening over here. When he's finding the order, a mouse click is happening over here. When it's toggling between the water all application and Blacksmith application, the screen navigation is happening over here. So you need to understand, you have to look at the process from that perspective. You have to, as a consultant, you have to wear that lens of having the process criteria and process actions in your mind, what exactly happening in the process. Now, process criteria would be in terms of volume. This process caters around 1,000 orders in a month, and look at the trend. If you have to identify a trend in November from your January to the December or 1 year trend, you need to check the seasonality. That's fine. Stability, check. No application changes are planned. No continuous improvement initiative has been planned. Routine task every time. Now on routine task, there can be sub scenarios at the decision points, right? There can be sub scenarios in terms of what code would go in, depending upon the kind of process you're working on. So if let's say for example, there are scenario 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 scenarios. Every scenario would have a repeatable task to do. So your process is repeatable and routine task is happening. So yeah, it's an ideal candidate for automation. But please do define your sub scenarios. Okay, all right. Now we check the stability, we check the standardization, we have checked the volume. Yes, it's an ideal process to automate. This is what we have done at looking at the water in the swimming pool. That's what I told you, right? Due diligence. Just have a look at the water. While you jump, you have to get deep dive. If you dive, when you reach to level 2 of due diligence, there when you would prepare a document, or you prepare an Excel sheet wherein everything would be there. You jot down all the process steps, you jot down the number of clicks, you jot down the copy and paste happening, you jot down the input to one application, your output to other application, the time it takes on the application. What if you have to compare the manual failure, if one step fails at the manual activity, how would it react when bot would be there if it fails over there? So that is where you try to get into the process, diving into a process, and trying to get that coin which is lying over there deep inside a pool. So this is we have understood the process at the first level. Second level, we will discuss on the sheet itself, the sheet which I prepared for you guys in terms of understanding how exactly you should go about it. You can have your own sheet prepared in an Excel format. You can have your own way of doing it. You can evolve that sheet, or probably you can use that sheet. Now in this process, everything seems to be very happy. Your process is following a happy path. We don't see any exceptions over there. You can figure out some exceptions at some point, but right now, at the high level look of it, the process seems to be 100% potential. I mean, there's a 100% potential in this process to automate. Now, but in real time, life is not that easy. So what shall we do in real time? In real time, your process could be like this, wherein while identifying the customer details, probably he is going to give a call to a customer. This step cannot be automated. Now what shall we do? This is where the concept of assisted automation would come into play, or attended automation come into play. So this part can be taken care by somebody who is doing manual work, and other part which can be automated would be a good candidate or suitable candidate for automation. So if you look at this process, if there are 10 steps and 2 or 3 steps which would be on assisted automation, so we would say it's 60 or 70 or 80% automation potential for this particular kind of process by looking at it. Now, there could also be a third scenario. Now, third scenario would be, if you look at the documentations, the document which while your representative is opening the attachment. Now, these documents could be your Word file, or your Excel file, your PDF, your scan image. Now, there can be a lot of exceptions at that step, or probably you would use some kind of OCR technology over there because you wanted to have a good percentage of image or a good text to be read out of your documents. So probably you'll go for standardization at this step, or probably you would implement some kind of OCR technology over there. And again, then you also have the agent sitting in the process who is going to take a call. So you cannot say that this is 90% or 80% process which can be automated. The potential could be around 50% for this type of process. So guys, why we are discussing this? We are discussing it because at the high level, at the first look of it, you as a consultant should be able to tell your organization what is the automation potential for that particular process. Yes, this can give you a vague picture with a variation of around 5 to 10%. If you say 50%, there are chances the process will be 45%, 55% with automation potential. But with level 2 analysis, you have to probably drill down to a process. You have to calculate each and every action, every click, every read, and write on the application to see what could be the true automation potential. And that you can only deduce once you do a kind of one-on-one application and process mapping with that agent or SME who have a particular thorough knowledge of the process. Now we understand the difference between assisted automation and complete automation. We have also understood the process criteria and process actions. Now, 3 more important things which we should know during due diligence. That is, what is the complexity level of your automation? Is it simple, medium, or complex? Yes, we discussed this earlier. What should be the complexity level of your automation or of your process? Now, the process which we discussed at the first stage look pretty simple. You need to do the application assessment also. Understand the application. Is it compatible with the kind of technology which you are going to implement your robotics? We discussed the kind of core technology and the kind of application is supported in our last video on application and tools and application for RPA. So you need to understand the kind of sync which can happen between your applications which are there in your process and the tool which you are going to use for RPA. You need to understand, you need to do the application analysis. During application analysis, you have to identify the application owner, you have to do a proper handshaking on your RACI, lock your RACI, log your application compatibility with your tool, and then during due diligence, assess the potential of your process. Right? So, process 1 is simple, process 2, medium, process 3 could be complex just because of some OCR is going to get into a picture, or a non-standardization can poke its nose in the process.